Podcasting isn't just about talking, it's about growing, engaging, and monetizing, and that's where Podcast One Pro comes in. Whether you're an independent creator or a major brand, Podcast One Pro gives you the tools you need to take your podcast to the next level. We're talking about premium hosting, advanced analytics, dynamic ad integration, and expert distribution, all designed to maximize your reach and revenue. Plus, with access to Podcast One's industry-leading network, you'll be connected to top-tier advertisers and a massive audience. It's time to go pro and turn your passion into profit. Visit podcastonepro.com to get started today. Podcast One Pro, the power behind the podcast.
I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. Welcome back to the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. I'm your host, Alice, and I'm joined, as always, by my swan of a co-host, Brett.
I am swan-like. I often get that from people. It's pretty common, actually, going back all the way to my childhood. People used to say, you're such a beautiful, unique swan. It's as if you're swimming in a beautiful pond. And it really carried me forward throughout my life, thinking of myself in that way. Not an ugly duckling, but a beautiful swan with all of its elegance, regal nature, almost royal, really.
Please stop. Please stop.
Oh, sorry.
Wow. I really thought you were going to end at some point. But you know what they say about swans, Brett?
They're
Swans
just like
don't
me?
swim in a sewer.
It's true.
This has nothing to do with Brett, guys. Actually has everything to do with the hottest new book that just came out a couple days ago by Cheryl McCollum, who we love here on the podcast. She wrote a new book, Swans Don't Swim in a Sewer. It's not about Brett's evolution from ugly duckling to beautiful swan. But I hope the soliloquy about swans makes you go check out the hottest new book in true crime and get it. Take it to CrimeCon and
get it signed.
Get Cheryl McCollum to sign it. Anyways, I just got really excited because it came in the mail for me today and I read it and it's amazing and you should read it too. But the reason I love this book and the reason I love Cheryl McCollum is that she works the cases. She is boots on the ground, law enforcement. She knows how it's really done. Things like what it's like in the heat of the moment when you are under arrest, having to secure the premises, and perhaps the belongings incident to an arrest. And whether that's constitutional or not, oh, guess what? It is. But we are talking about just that situation today in none other than the Luigi Mangione case.
I tell you what, and true crime's been hot lately. There's just been all sorts of stories. Like, I don't even know where to start. We had Murdaugh last week, and then right after that, we had this Luigi Mangione development, which obviously dominated the airwaves. And it was really funny because, as you're going to see, this is a very mixed decision that we're going to talk about. And you can always tell who the clickbait is aimed at from various sources. And I talked about this on Twitter because I noticed it. If the source reporting on this thought that people would be angered by the granting of part of this suppression motion, that's what they said. Court grants Luigi Mangione suppression motion. If it thought people would be fired up by the denial of the suppression motion, that's what they said. Court denies suppression motion. And it was so funny because this is obviously much more complicated than that. But seeing how you are manipulated by clickbait articles, it was just a real-time example of that.
So what we're talking about, of course, is Luigi Mangione, back in December of 2024. He is alleged to have, and it's caught on camera doing this, walking into the streets of New York and killing Brian Thompson, who is the CEO of United Healthcare, because of his position. Then there was this massive manhunt. So it was bold, shot him, right there in the middle of the streets of New York City in broad daylight, and then absconds. And there is this massive manhunt to search for the murderer who was on the loose. And when they found him, it was actually a McDonald's employee who saw him sitting in a booth and called it in and said, hey, I think the guy you're looking for, because again, he was caught on security footage doing this, is sitting right here. The police came, they arrested him. And when they did, there was a backpack next to him. So this is what we're talking about, is whether the things that were seized during the arrest can be suppressed. Now, the latest decision came in the state case, and the suppression involved 2 separate searches. The first was the backpack that was found next to him in the McDonald's where he was arrested. Now, during this brief search, the police found a cell phone, a magazine, a passport, a wallet, and a computer chip.
And a magazine, like the kind that goes in a gun. Not the kind you read. So they find a magazine, it's loaded. And at this point, there's this discussion on camera. Obviously, they know who this is. There's some concern about a possible bomb being in there. They open it up. They don't see a bomb, but they see this stuff. Well, once they realize there's no bomb, but there's clearly evidence in this, they back off, which typically is what you would do when you're police involved in some sort of search like this. And they seize the backpack. They arrest him. They take it all to the police station. Once you're at the police station, if you have any items, there's always an inventory search where basically you catalog everything you seized, and usually there'll be a search warrant later on, but it's just an understanding that you're always going to inventory stuff. So that's what they do. And in many ways, this is an exception to the search requirement because it's just a widely recognized exception that the police are going to be able to do that. It avoids all sorts of charges of stealing anything or losing anything, that sort of thing. So they inventory the backpack, and during this second search, they find the firearm that was used in the murder of Brian Thompson, the silencer that was used on the weapon, and a notebook that includes a lot of Luigi Mangione's writings. And this obviously, all of this, both what they found at the McDonald's and what they found during this second search, are things that one might want to use in a prosecution going forward. And you got to recall, and this is important, he has now been charged essentially with murder, both in the federal system and in the state system.
So we've said this before, the adversarial system, really any defense attorney, you would expect them to file a motion to suppress, because if this evidence doesn't come in, it really changes the ballgame of the prosecution. So this is completely expected. We talked about this, and that's exactly what Mangione did. His defense team filed a motion to suppress this evidence in both his state case and his federal case. The federal case rejected the suppression motion in full. We had talked about the reasons that should be the case, that it should be rejected. This search was incident to an arrest. There were exigent circumstances. Discovery was inevitable due to the inventory search that would have been completed at the station regardless. Those are all the reasons for it. If you remember, you can see the video of him being arrested. People were hiding in their homes because there was a killer out on the loose. And when you have someone who did such a bold murder in broad daylight, police have to take all precautions because he's probably still armed and has essentially nothing to lose when they approach him. So definitely those exigent circumstances. And when you get arrested, they get to search your persons to make sure you don't have a bomb, you don't have other weapons that could hurt the officers who are arresting you. So that was the reasoning behind the federal case rejecting his motion to suppress.
And we talked about this, if you guys are longtime listeners of Legal Briefs, when he filed the motion to suppress. We did a episode on that, I think right after they had the hearing on the motion to suppress. Went through the law on that, explained how suppression works, what your rights generally are, and told you exactly how that was going to finish up. We told you that it would be rejected for one of a number of reasons, and it was as we expected. But one thing that's really interesting about this case is because you have these parallel proceedings. You've got a state charge and a federal charge. And it seems like this is just me reading the tea leaves or I don't know if they're tea leaves. I'm reading something. It seems like the state and the feds aren't really cooperating in the way that you like to see. Typically, you wouldn't have this kind of parallel prosecution. You would have one prosecution that would go forward, and then the other entity would decide whether to prosecute. And you see that all the time. All the time. I mean, if you think about the Murdaugh case with the financial crimes, the feds went ahead and prosecuted. Murdaugh went ahead and pled guilty. Then the state did its thing. He ends up pleading guilty to the state charges as well. And you see that a lot from the simplest, small-time drug dealer, guy who's got a gun, all the way up to murder cases. It seems like that's not happening. What seems like is happening here is the two entities are competing to convict this guy first, and there's fights over when the trials are going to happen. I don't know. I frankly find it unseemly. I mean, I have no sympathy whatsoever for Luigi Mangione, but I just find the whole way it's being handled to be unseemly. But it's an advantage for those of us who are nerds, who are law nerds, because we get to see how it's the exact same argument.
Laboratories of democracy.
Absolutely. It's the exact same argument about the exact same issue in two different sovereigns and how they're going to come out. And the state court did not come out the way the federal court did. And that was the bombshell that we saw and that led to all those clickbait headlines and people say, oh, this is such a victory for Luigi Mangione. He's one step closer to going free and all this other stuff. And people freaking out on the gallery and everything else. So the state court opinion, let's talk about that. So it took a very different tack than the federal opinion. And in fact, it split the baby. It said that there are two searches. The first one was improper and unconstitutional. And therefore, the fruits of that search must be suppressed. So the cell phone, the loaded magazine, the passport, the wallet, the computer, and we say chip, I think it's I don't know what
like
exactly that means.
Thing.
Maybe it's a thumb drive.
It holds information.
Yeah, something with information on it. That is going to be suppressed. But then the question comes, well, what about what was found later on? The gun, the silencer, the writings, which are all really important. And if those get suppressed, would be a really big deal. Well, the court said that search is fine. That search is an inventory search, and it's fine.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket.
Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states. The first law firm to answer usually wins the client. But when you're in court, in a deposition, or heads down on a case, calls get missed and opportunities slip away. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, the smarter way to run your firm's communications. Quo, QUO, gives your firm speed to lead routing, an AI receptionist that provides 24/7 support, and one shared inbox so every attorney, paralegal, and staffer stays in sync. Quo is the #1 business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, built for how modern teams actually work. More than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing firms, rely on Quo. Quo's speed to lead routing makes sure new client calls never go unanswered, even after hours. A 24/7 AI receptionist and local numbers that boost answer rates mean your firm stays competitive whether your team is in court, in a meeting, or out of the office.
Every attorney, paralegal, and staffer can work out of one shared number, so everyone sees the full conversation history, so your team responds faster and every client feels like a priority. Quo isn't just a phone system. It's a smarter way to run your firm. Quo automatically logs every call, generates summaries, and highlights next steps, so no detail ever gets missed, and it integrates with the tools your firm already has, like Clio, Lawmatics, MyCase, and HubSpot. Be the firm that answers first. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/prosecutors. That's QUO.com/prosecutors. Quo, no missed calls, no missed opportunities.
Now, just to sort of set the scene for you as we get into this, a lot of things should be going through your mind if you've been listening to us, if you're students at Prosecutors University or graduates, alumni of Prosecutors University. You might be thinking a couple things. You might be thinking, okay, so the search of the backpack is a search incident to an arrest. It's a search under exigent circumstances. And what about inevitable discovery? If the search of the backpack at the station was fine, that inventory search was fine, and it was always going to happen, and they were always going to be able to arrest him, and they were always going to take that backpack to the station, why isn't inevitable discovery saying, you're saying that search is fine, they would have found everything else? Why doesn't that cure the problem? So those are the three ways that this initial search should have been fine, and in fact, that's what the federal court said. Under those three different theories, this search is fine. Why not here? And Alice, go in a little detail about what a laboratory of democracy is. What does that mean?
So the concept of federalism is that the states are their own sovereigns, right? When we became the United States of America, the states did not want a strong federal government. And part of the idea of all these states being their own sovereigns is that you get to let things work out. You get to have lots of experiments with democracy. What's going to happen in Massachusetts and Georgia can be all the same facts and the same inputs, but the people get to choose their own adventure on how democracy would dictate the outcome in that area. And so the laboratories of democracy, that coined term, means that we get to see how democracy works out in lots of different situations among the states. And there's not one big federal dictate that every state has to work in the same way. So here we have a state and a federal kind of having the exact same situation, but different outcomes because they're following different reasonings and different types of protections in terms of what they hold to be more important than not. Because remember, your rights they're always a seesaw. You're balancing something. You're giving up something to get something and vice versa.
So with that, let's talk about the McDonald's search. But first, a little bit from our sponsor, McDonald's. I'm loving it. Check out their new Arch Deluxe or whatever it's called today.
They're not a sponsor, guys.
But they should be.
Okay, so my kids, we don't go out to eat very often, like ever. And so my kids are like, we were driving by one time and there was a McDonald's and they've never been to McDonald's before. And my son goes, Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to get money and I'm going to buy myself a McDonald's.
There you go.
Like a food or like the store? He's like, a food. And I said, which food from McDonald's? He goes, I don't know, but something from McDonald's.
Yeah, we eat at McDonald's all the time. It's funny. My kids' lives and Alice's kids' lives are like, my kids are like in sugar comas. They got Happy Meals all over their body, like, you know, French fries stuck in their hair.
Our kids are the exact same. Your kids are probably smarter than mine. It's not like I'm some great parent. Honestly, it's a lot of work to take 4 kids to McDonald's. It's easier to pop something in the oven here.
Kids love Big Macs, I'm just saying. And Happy Meals and everything else. Anyways, besides the point. But yeah, whenever we talk about this, I love McDonald's breakfast. They give me a biscuit and a sausage, some grape jelly. And this is
I actually know this about you because whenever we're in trial, like I barely get out of bed and brush my hair and make it to court in time. And Brett always rolls up with like the McDonald's deluxe breakfast for everybody. And I'm like,
good.
When did you have time to go to McDonald's?
They know my name at McDonald's. They know like my voice.
Just like it's at Longhorn, Texas Longhorn.
Texas Roadhouse. I go to McDonald's and like, the lady's like, using your McDonald's app today. And I'm like, no, I just, can I get a sausage biscuit and a large coffee? And she's always like, hey, my friend, absolutely, it's this price. And then I pull around and she's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm great. And, where are the kids? And, anyways, and we have a little chat at the McDonald's windows. So big fan of McDonald's here. One thing I'm curious about before we get back into the Luigi Mangione thing. So growing up in the South, I love sausage biscuits. And I really love grape jelly on sausage biscuits. And when I went to Harvard, this was weird to people. Like, people thought it was very strange that I would eat jelly or like strawberry jam on a sausage biscuit. And that was the first time I had ever experienced that bigotry against sweet things on a sausage biscuit. Alice, what is your experience with sausage?
I never
biscuits?
ate it that way, but I obviously knew that was an option because like when you go to Waffle House or any sort of like, at least in the South, this was the case. Like they come with like your biscuits and sausage all come with a plate of butter and then a plate of jam.
Exactly.
So like I just never chose the jam, but I knew it was an option. I was more of a savory person, but I didn't think it was weird.
I just feel like people, I don't understand what's going through your head. I mean, think about this for a second. Like, think about like honey, like a honey on a sausagey biscuit type thing. Or like if you've ever had pancakes with a side of bacon and some of the syrup gets on the bacon and how good that is. Or if you've ever had a McGriddle from McDonald's, it has the syrup in it that you're eating.
And then you have sausages that are smoked with the maple syrup.
Exactly.
And that's delicious.
The sweet
like
and
apple
the savory.
Sausage, so good.
It goes together. So if you've never done it, try it. It's really good. I think it'll blow your mind. I think it'll change things for you. And who knows, if Luigi Mangione had ever had grape jelly on his sausage biscuit, maybe he wouldn't have turned out the way he did.
Maybe he wouldn't have been so angry.
Exactly. So getting back to this. So, okay. Laboratories of Democracy. That's where we left off before the ad break. And
the not real ad break.
The not real ad break. So this is all about New York law. And it's always funny when we do these, and we run into this sometimes. I remember talking about South Carolina. Like we did a 404B episode with Murdaugh, and we explained to you 404B, and it wasn't until the South Carolina Supreme Court that they're like, we're unlike any other state in the union. Here, 404 is a rule of exclusion, not inclusion. And it's like, wow, really? That's how you do it? Well, it's the same thing here. New York's laws on this stuff are wacky. They're just completely different from what you see in any other jurisdiction. So you got this one crime that was committed in New York that's going to be decided under these two very different legal structures. So the New York Constitution and the way it's been interpreted by the New York, I guess, Superior Court, because that's another thing. The Supreme Court in New York is the trial level court, which doesn't even make sense.
Which doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's not the only state like that, by the way. So we're not just picking on New York.
I learned that from Law and Order. I think most of us learned that from Law and Order, that the Supreme Court in New York is like where you try your cases. But anyways, so whatever we call it, whatever the top court is, whatever the quote-unquote Supreme Court is in New York, has interpreted the New York Constitution to be more protective of your rights than the federal Constitution. And that's absolutely something you can do. The federal Constitution is a floor. You can't go below it. If you're a state and you're like, to hell with all this search and seizure stuff, we're getting rid of that. You can't do that. You can't go below it, but you absolutely can add to it. You can be more protective of the First Amendment. You can be more protective of search and seizure stuff. You see this in the abortion litigation. There are a lot of states that have abortion protections built into their state constitution. So even when Dobbs overturned Roe versus Wade, it didn't necessarily mean anything in those states. So you can always have a more protective state constitution. And that's what you have in this circumstance. The New York Constitution is more protective than the federal Constitution when it comes to searches. In New York, let's start with the search incident to arrest. Now, we talked about this a little bit. The Supreme Court has royally messed this up in federal jurisdictions such that they say things and no one applies it that way. For instance, a search incident to arrest, it's not supposed to be so broad that you could search like everything just because someone's arrested. But the fact that you're in handcuffs doesn't mean you couldn't access something. It's a little weird. It's kind of, you got to go with the feel of the Supreme Court decision, not necessarily the words. And hopefully one day they fix that. Well, in New York, they are very strict about it. And they've said that in order to search a closed container, incident to arrest, it must be in the, and this is the technical term that they use to describe it.
The Latin, shall we say.
Yes, exactly. It's like the Latin phrase that we're going to use to describe it. It has to be in the grabbable area. So if it's in the
that
grabbable...
sounds dirty.
the grabbable area of the defendant who's been arrested, then you can search it. But if it's not in the grabbable area, you can't search it. Incident to arrest. So that's the first thing. And if you can't show that, then you have to show some sort of exigent circumstances.
When I'm in New York, I want to be like, hey, that's my grabbable area. They'll be like, ma'am, ma'am. So at the time of Luigi Mangione's arrest, the New York court found that his backpack had been moved away from him and that multiple officers were surrounding him. He was handcuffed, compliant, and he was non-combative, and that the bag was under the police's exclusive control. And this was enough under the more restrictive New York state law to prevent a search incident to arrest. I find this really fascinating, Brett, because at what point in time was it in the grabbable area? They moved it away. It was in his grabbable area because he was on the bench with him. So what are they supposed to do? Keep themselves in danger and not restrict him? Then they can search the bag? This seems interesting to me.
Okay, you've put your finger on something, and we're going to see this. New York law is really weird in that it encourages police to do dumb things. And in fact, it encourages police to violate your rights, as we're going to see in the next one. It's very strange. So you're right. Under this, they should have just left his backpack right next to him. And as long as it's right next to him, what's in his grabbable area, we can search it. But since they did what seems like the smart thing, which is to move it away from him, well, not in his grabbable area anymore. So it's just so weird. If they had just not surrounded him and not moved the backpack and left things a little dodgy, then it would have been okay.
And let's just carry this out further because, again, this is kind of those unintended consequences. The purpose was in order to give more protections to the defendant, right? Let's play this out. So if what the police are incentivized to do is to not secure the premises and not secure him, and he is unhandcuffed and he is still within reach of his backpack, what would that encourage? It would encourage a lot more uncertainty about what could happen next. So what if he reached into his backpack, maybe not even to grab a gun, maybe to just get his ID. But because they didn't restrict him, they didn't move it away from him, they don't have him secured, the police are completely within their reasonable rights to think that he may be pulling a gun on them and perhaps they shoot him. So you see how these unintended consequences that were meant to actually give more protections to the defendant may actually lead to unintended consequences that are worse for the defendant.
I just want to know, Aaron makes a really interesting point, which is fascinating. So he's not arrested in New York. He's arrested in Pennsylvania. He's then extradited to New York. So this is a choice of law question. We've never done choice of law before. We should do a whole episode on choice of law. So choice of law in this case, you would apply the forum law. So the forum law is New York law. So New York law applies to his rights. So even though he's arrested in another place, that would apply. Now, you can think about this, how this might be really important if you're arrested overseas. I mean, imagine you're like arrested in El Salvador and they torture you and beat you and you confess. And that's all fine in El Salvador. And then they extradite you to the United States to be charged. We can't argue, well, I mean, yeah, typically that would be completely illegal, but they did it in El Salvador and we didn't tell them to do it, so therefore it's fine. No, you still get the protections of the Constitution that you would get no matter what. So same thing is happening here. He's getting the protections of New York law. Now, what's interesting about that is you do have a circumstance where officers who are trained under their own laws with the expectation of what is legal are acting legally as far as they know, and then that can have consequences somewhere else. So that's really interesting point, really good point to make. So we'll talk about, we'll do a whole choice of law. We'll do Erie versus Tompkins at some point. You know, that's civil law, but it's still really interesting. Anyways, so you have the circumstance, you know, they move the bag away from him, so he's good, right? What about exigency? So that's number 2. Okay, fine. Not search as an incident to arrest. What about exigency? And exigency means if there's an emergency, if there's a really serious situation where the police must act. to protect the public, and they don't have time to call up a magistrate judge and say, hey, get us a search warrant. There are going to be times where they're just going to have to act, and if they find something, that's going to be allowed in because it doesn't violate the spirit of the Constitution, and we have to allow for practical considerations. That's exigency. And the federal court made clear exigency is another reason this would have come in. Well, here, the court said that even though they had video evidence that confirmed that the police, they're talking about being concerned about a possible bomb being in the backpack because they know who this guy is and they know what he has done. He's a political actor. There's all sorts of reasons to think that. Even though they said that at the time, that fact wasn't enough. And the reason it wasn't enough goes once again to these unintended consequences. Because they didn't search the entire bag. It worked against them. So the basic position of the court was, well, yeah, they started searching, but then they stopped. If they really thought there was a bomb in the bag, they would have continued to search. And since they stopped, that shows they didn't really care. So basically, if they had just gone all out in the search, maybe Cavity searched him too, then okay, that search is fine. If they'd searched the whole backpack, fine, constitutional. But since they limited the search, we're going to say there weren't exigent circumstances. They also noted that they didn't move the backpack out of the McDonald's when they thought, well, would you really open the backpack in McDonald's if you thought there was a bomb in there? Or would you move it out before you opened it? This further undermined the theory that they were afraid of a bomb.
Okay, even under New York law, frankly, this is error. New York, like most other jurisdictions, applies the reasonable officer standard for exigency, not hindsight 2020. The question is not what did these particular officers think or do, but what would a reasonable officer in those circumstances think or do? So if a reasonable officer arresting an assassin with a backpack would fear there might be a bomb in the bag, that search should be reasonable. So them getting into the facts of how they searched the bag, where they searched it, all these things doesn't matter. That's completely erroneous, even based on New York's law because of the reasonable officer standard.
And I'll just say this is a mistake that trial level judges make all the time because it's really easy to make it. And what's interesting about this and sort of shows in federal court, they put very few witnesses on. And I don't know if they put any witnesses on. They maybe put a couple on. But it was mostly based on sort of the agreed upon facts because, frankly, you're applying the reasonable man standard. You're saying, like, you know, what would a reasonable officer do in these circumstances? So, honestly, it doesn't really matter that much what the officers would testify to. A good example of this. So, you have pretextual stops all the time. So, DEA is expecting a drug shipment from a vehicle with a certain tag. For all sorts of reasons, they want to be able to stop that vehicle, not for the drug stuff. And it has a lot to do with what they'd have to provide in discovery, what they'd have to tell people. They might have to blow up the whole investigation. So much better to have that vehicle stopped because of a traffic violation. Then you develop reasonable suspicion. Then you search the car. You find the drugs independently of the larger drug operation, and you can move forward with that. We do it all the time. So they'll say, hey, look for this car. Trooper will see that car. Trooper pulls in behind the car. Trooper follows the car until they violate one of the 10,000 rules about how you drive. Oh, he didn't signal a lane change. He drifted over the fog line. You know, he went 1 mile over the speed limit. He went too slow. You know, he followed too closely. His tent's too dark. It could be any number of things. They figure out a reason. They pull the guy over. The guy is transporting drugs, so he's super nervous and evasive. They use that to develop reasonable suspicion. They call in the dogs. The dogs find the drugs. They arrest him. He has no idea DA knows about him. It's totally pretextual. That's not why he's really being stopped. But the courts have all said, doesn't matter because in an objective test, you had reason to stop him. You had reason to search. You're fine. It doesn't matter what's in the mind of the police officer. But so many times, judges will fall into this trap where they're trying to parse exactly what the officer was thinking. And that's what happened here. The judge, it was a very long evidentiary hearing. A lot of people were called. They all testified about this. And the judge fell into this trap where he's trying to figure out, well, did you really think there was a bomb? Did this officer really think there was a bomb? I mean, look, he did some things he shouldn't have done. Would you really open the bag with people in the restaurant? Yeah, he probably shouldn't have done that. They probably should have cleared the restaurant. That would have been smart. That would have been what a reasonable officer in this circumstance would have done. But guess what? That has no bearing on whether or not the search is valid. So the judge falls into that trap and ends up finding there's no exigency because of what these particular officers did in this particular situation, rather than applying the reasonable officer standard. So that's that. So we've lost 2. Inventory search. Inevitable discovery. This one seems like the most obvious, and the federal court relied on this a lot. Federal court said, look, yeah, it's search instant to an arrest. Yeah, there's some exigency here. But guess what? Even if you disagree on that, you want to argue with that, that's fine. The fact of the matter is they were going to arrest him. They were going to seize that backpack. And when it got back to the station, they were going to inventory it. And when they inventoried it, they were going to find all this stuff. And that means it's fine because it's inevitable discovery. So whatever happened in between then doesn't matter. And that's federal law.
But there's always that but. New York law is completely messed up in this area. They essentially don't have inevitable discovery, which is kind of shocking, especially if you know where this went, right? You're not going to arrest someone and let them just carry their backpack into prison without searching it, right? So they have independent discovery. If the police are, say, beating up a suspect and he finally blurts out that the gun is in the dumpster, the gun won't be suppressed if at that moment the police are searching the dumpster independently. But that's it. So under the federal rule, the contents of the backpack are all inevitably discoverable, but not so under New York state law. And this is seriously shocking because it's like it wasn't written by anyone who's ever been boots on the ground law enforcement.
I don't even know why they call it inevitable discovery. That's not the inevitable discovery rule.
That's not. No, it's not.
And it's so weird. I mean, just think about this. Like, it's so funny. If they'd searched the whole backpack, then it would have been exigent circumstances. But if they'd searched the whole backpack, then they would not have been able to rely on inevitable discovery because anything they found in that initial search is just out. And it doesn't matter that they would have found it eventually. And that is just like, it hurts my brain having been a federal prosecutor and litigated so many of these search questions. An inevitable discovery, you know, we don't look for constitutional violations. Like, we're not trying to find them. It's just so weird. And we punish the officers for backing off when it came to exigent circumstances. I guess we rewarded them when it came to inevitable discovery. But thank goodness when they unzipped that backpack, the gun wasn't right there. Because if it had have been, then it's out. You know, and it's just, I don't understand. I mean, I get it. We want to protect people's rights not to be illegally searched. But this guy, he's been arrested. This is not just he was hanging out in the McDonald's and some cop wanted to know what was in his backpack. He's been arrested for suspicion of having assassinated someone with like a 3D printed gun for deeply political reasons. This is an incredibly dangerous situation. And the idea that these officers acted in any way, nothing they did is unusual. Nothing they did is offensive to your rights, raises concerns about our liberties. Everything they did would have been absolutely fine under Pennsylvania law and under federal law. It's very strange. But I mean, that's, once again, laboratories of democracy. And the thing about the laboratories of democracy is you get to see the consequences of bad laws. And I think this is a bad law on New York's part. I don't feel like the citizens of New York feel better in their beds tonight, knowing that Luigi Mangione's rights were protected. What was in his backpack when he was arrested at McDonald's? I don't feel like, man, thank goodness I don't have to experience that government tyranny of having my backpack searched when I'm arrested in suspicion of having assassinated someone. It's just very weird, but that's New York law. And I will say this, there's a couple things about this ruling. Number one, I think this is a very appeal-proof ruling for the state. The state may not like the fact that some things were suppressed, but if Mangione goes to trial and loses and tries to appeal, it's going to be really hard to win because the court did suppress some things, very strictly applied its view of New York law. I do think the second point we made on exigent circumstances, if the state wanted to appeal, they would have a really good argument there. In order to do an interlocutory appeal in New York, you have to certify that the evidence that was suppressed was critical to your case. Honestly, I don't know that it is. Like the stuff that was suppressed seems very insignificant. Like if the gun were suppressed, or the silencer was suppressed, or the manifesto was suppressed, okay, well, we need those. But none of that was suppressed. If I'm the state, I roll with this. I just say, fine, I move forward. You're probably going to absolutely be fine in trial. And I think the practical effect of this and the significance of this is it's very low. Yeah, the state lost, but they didn't really lose much of anything. And if this gets appealed, he won't have like the easy hook. Like if the state court judge had not suppressed anything, then all these wacky New York laws come into play. And if he gets convicted, he may be able to say, well, look, the magazine shouldn't have come in because of our wacky rules when it comes to inevitable discovery. So there were a lot of people who, I mean, I don't know why we have pro-Mangione and anti-Mangione camps, but there were a lot of people in the anti-Mangione camp who were very upset about this, very fired up about it. But to me, I think this is really a nothing burger in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think this is right. It doesn't affect the federal case. We're seeing how kind of the New York law plays out in this case. Maybe it'll affect change of how the people of New York want to have protections, maybe not. But we're getting to see the differences. And ultimately, for going to trial or even for a plea deal, I don't think it changes the calculus much because the important information is allowed in.
And just, Joe has a question. I want to answer that question because I don't want to confuse anybody. He asked, if you arrest someone in New York, do you need a warrant to inventory a car, items on a person? No, you don't. That's what's wild about this. The inventory search is perfectly fine under New York law. But because they had looked in the backpack first and seen some things in the backpack, and because the judge found that that search was not proper, once they did the entirely valid inventory search, which would have found all those items, it doesn't matter because they have a weird inevitable discovery rule. Anything they found during the initial illegal search is out. Anything they inventory is in. So inventory searches are fine. You just can't do the initial part of the search.
Truthfully, if it's a head scratcher, it's because it is kind of a head scratcher.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is very strange. All to say is, this doesn't greatly change the calculus of the case. So that is where we are with Luigi Mangione.
So I do want to address some things, just like a rapid fire, because things people have been asking us now that we've finished with this. Alice, I didn't even talk about this with Alice beforehand. So Alice is just going to she's just going to give her view. She's going to roll with it. Okay. So there was a decision in Tennessee in the Abrego Garcia case. You may recall Abrego Garcia has been a very controversial person. He has been deported and then returned to the United States and then indicted for human trafficking. There was a decision today that the human trafficking indictment had to be dismissed because of malicious prosecution. So basically, he was only prosecuted for this because the government was mad at him that the whole deportation thing didn't work. This is really rare. I mean, Alice, I don't know if you've ever seen an actual successful malicious prosecution claim go
I don't think
forward.
I have, actually.
Now, if you read the opinion, they got some really good things they point to for this. And the weird thing about malicious prosecution is if you prove it, then it doesn't actually matter that you did the thing. It's like the fact that you did the thing is irrelevant because they only prosecuted you for improper reasons. So I think that will be appealed. It's a very fascinating issue. Read the opinion if you're interested in that kind of thing. I mean, the opinion's very well written. I will say that. I don't know that it's right. I mean, it's hard to say, but Interesting opinion that just came out today, literally. So check that out. That's the first thing. The second thing people have asked about. So President Trump just entered into an agreement with the IRS not to audit him anymore for things that happened in the past. So basically, there's been this long-standing, decades-long litigation between Trump Enterprises, and the IRS over these audits that they do of him. And he's always said that they are malicious audits. That's basically his position. Malicious audits, you shouldn't be doing it. DOJ, the IRS, just entered into an agreement with him to suspend all those audits, and basically none of those prior audits will continue ever. So he cannot be audited based on anything that happened before today, anytime in the future. This is a consent decree. It is a sue and settle thing. Sue and settle is something we probably should talk about. I find sue and settle to be fundamentally corrupt, I guess. I hate sue and settle. They've been doing it for decades. I don't feel like
that's the way you wield the lawsuit.
You, as someone who worked in Fed programs, did you have experience? Did you do any sue and settle cases?
A lot of people sought to sue so that we would sue and settle, but because of the nature of the claims that came before us, they were typically cases that the government wanted to go to the mat on. So we did not do the sue and settle cases, but a lot of the people who sued us were hoping for a sue and settle.
So sue and settle is basically, there's no real adversary. Like, everybody's on the same page. You do the lawsuit, you agree to whatever you want the outcome to be, and you have some federal judge to certify it. Happens all the time. Happens in every administration. You know, a lot of times it'll be something like, I'll give you an example. Someone wants to sue the Chicago Police Department because of their racial profiling. So Chicago's doing racial profiling. They want to sue them to stop that. The mayor of Chicago is like, you know what? We shouldn't be doing that. So they get together with the plaintiffs and they're like, hey, sue us and we'll settle, and it'll be these terms, and we'll have a federal judge enforce it. And that way, going forward, that'll be the rule. So even if the next mayor disagrees with me, it doesn't matter. They're under this agreement. So that's what you do. So here, in this case, this long-standing disagreement, Trump sues the IRS. He's seeking like billions of dollars in damages. And the settlement is, you don't have to pay me the damages, but you have to end all the audits. That's the settlement. In this case, there's some self-dealing-ish aspects here since he's the president and he runs the IRS. So we'll see what happens. I imagine this will be challenged by somebody if anybody has standing to challenge it. Standing might be an issue. So we'll see what happens. But that's what it is. It's a sue and settle agreement where everybody was on the same page from the very beginning and they got the outcome they wanted. So that's number 2. Number 3, people have asked about this politicization fund thing that's happening. So basically, DOJ has set up some fund for anyone who feels like they were the target of politicized prosecutions under the Biden administration. They can apply to the fund. They can get money from the fund. Number 1. That one's totally going to be challenged. That one's going to be enjoined by somebody. Some district court judge is going to enjoin that. I mean, look, I don't know why they're doing this. I feel like this one, think about legal briefs. It crosses over into politics more than our other podcast. This one's right on the line between law and politics. I feel like a political solution will probably happen here. I could imagine the Senate, the House, in a bipartisan manner, disagreeing to this particular thing. And we've talked about this. Look, Trump's not the first person to politicize the DOJ. It happened under Biden. It absolutely did. That's just the way it is. I don't know. Some people probably want to disagree with that. It did happen. Do we need some sort of slush fund about it? I don't know. I mean, personally, the way I would like to deal with it would be to agree that this is really bad and we shouldn't be politicizing things. We talked about this in the Comey episode we did. It is un-American to use the power of the DOJ and the federal government and the prosecutorial agencies to enforce your political views. And it doesn't really matter to me who it is. It's just not a good thing to do. So I don't know if this is the way to address it. I think the way to address it is to, number one, stop doing it, get rid of people who did it, and move forward. But, I don't know. There may be in the next administration, if it's not one friendly to this administration, maybe there'll be a slush fund for the people who were politically targeted in this administration. I don't know. But I don't think that's the way to deal with the broader problem of lawfare and politicized prosecutions. Those are my 3 issues.
Those are great issues. I've been nonstop working today. Didn't even know all these issues. The world passes you by when you have a job, apparently.
See, I read most of the emails. So those of you who are sending emails and all this stuff, I'm the one who reads it. And
I read them at night, not during the day.
Poor Alice is just having to respond in real time to all these issues you guys are raising.
It's called thinking on the spot. I read them just a day later. I can't read them in real time. I love you guys, but today I settled the case, so there was that.
There you go. See, Alice is off doing real stuff, and I'm reading your emails about all the wacky things happening in Washington.
Well, there you have it. Legal briefs with the law and hard-hitting news at the same time.
There you go.
I agree with you, Brett. What can I say? That's what we have on a Friday night. This is what we do. We fly in from all our cities in order to tell you exactly what happened as it was, as you were. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know what you think here. Do we need to answer questions?
Let's answer some questions.
Let's answer some questions.
It's Friday night. I have nothing to do.
Let's answer some questions, guys.
Okay, so we got some legal briefs questions. This is a legal brief episode. We have legal briefs questions for you guys. So we have someone, let's see if I get the name. This is from appropriately named paralegal student. And paralegal student, it's Nurse Ratched, Texas, who's apparently a paralegal student now, says, I'm about to transition into a paralegal career. I'm currently a registered nurse, so it all makes sense. And I'm taking my certification course. How can I best assist attorneys? What's the best way to get my foot in the door? I'm currently working in magistrate court as a clerk supervisor. That's a great beginning.
You're going to be such a good paralegal. The fact that you're seeking to help out the attorney, the best paralegals really are, they're essentially like attorneys to me. They take things into ownership of their own. They're watching out for me every step of the way in terms of whether the court is updating on things. They're taking the initiative to go to the local rules, making sure that everything is in line and not taking face value emails they're getting or even my instruction. So I may have missed that New York law slightly different because I don't practice in it every single day. And so even if I tell you, hey, docket this because the response in New York is 15 days from the filing, go and check the rule and be like, you know what? Actually, New York is 14 days. I would have been 1 day off and missed my deadline. But a really good paralegal takes everything into ownership and helps look out for all the icebergs for the attorney. That's one small example of how you can be stellar.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, and this goes for so many different positions out there, including lawyers, because everybody's got a boss, right? Everybody's got a boss. If you can be the person that your boss knows when they give something to you, they don't have to worry about it. You're going to get it done. You're going to do it well. You're going to provide them the information they need. That is what everyone wants, because everybody's got so much on their own plate. If there is someone they can trust and rely on, that is gold. Gold. And if you can be that paralegal, you will be beloved in your office.
And along those lines, it actually shocks me. There's a lot of attorneys that don't do this too. Communicate. When you get an email, received. Got this. If you can't get something done in time, hey, based on my current workload, it looks like I can get to this within the next 48 hours. If that changes, I'll let you know. 48 hours comes by, you had a massive emergency, you can't get to it. It's okay. Don't freak out. Hey, this is actually not due for another 72 hours. I said I'd get it done in 48. I had an emergency come in and I couldn't get to it. I just wanted you to know that it has not fallen off my radar. I'm going to get it a little later to you than I originally hoped. As long as you communicate, basically everything's okay, as long as you don't miss a deadline. It's amazing because I know it seems silly, but I will have attorneys, not just paralegals, who just get scared and then don't say anything. And if I don't hear from you, I get scared. I'm like, did you get the email? Is it in spam? Do I now have to drop everything and worry about this because are we going to miss a deadline? But if you communicate, all is good, whether you pick up the phone or email. And that goes along with you will get things done.
That's so true. The number of times, I write a brief and I send it to somebody. I'm like, hey, this is due tomorrow at 5. Can you file it for me? And I send it. I don't hear anything. The rest of the day goes, I can see what's filed. Nothing's been filed. I'm like, okay. I go to bed. I wake up the next day. I go to work. It's getting towards lunch. Nothing's been filed. And I'm like, and then I'm starting to worry about it. And now I'm not thinking about the next thing. I'm thinking about the last thing because I'm like, is that going to get filed? Like, do I need to email again? Do I need to follow up on this? Do I need to be annoying? And then I'm like, hey, I just wanted to remind you. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting ready to file now. Well, if you literally who just replied and said, I got it, I would have been good, but I didn't get that. And so now I'm worried about it this whole time.
Totally. Like, it's not some grand gesture. It's not like, oh, you've read every legal book there is and you know all the intricate law. Honestly, showing up and responsiveness, and you'll be like 99% beyond everybody else.
This is the great secret of life, is it's not, you don't have to be like someone in a movie where you're anticipating every move that your boss wants. Like, it's like The Devil Wears Prada, and like right now she's going to want the coffee with the this and that, and you got the color of the silk or whatever. No, literally, if you just show up and do your job, people are going to be like, wow, they're so really amazing. They're always here when I need them, and they do the things I ask them to do. It's incredible. I mean, it is wild. And if you do that, and you anticipate things, and you go a bit above and beyond, then you're going to be like the superstar, incredible person. So, yeah, you got this. You're going to be awesome. Frankly, the job you've been doing, way higher stress, way higher responsibility. Take the work ethic you applied to being a nurse, apply it to being a paralegal, and you will be an absolute rock star.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Remember, if you leave a 5-star review, you get to ask any question. Can be true crime related, can be law related, doesn't have to be at all. We hope you enjoyed this update. As always, write to us what you want to hear about, and we'll talk about it. We always say, go read it for yourself. Go read these opinions for yourself. See what you think. And if you have more questions, let us know. But until next time, I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. I have a visitor outside my door. Do you want to come in? Buddy? Come in.
You're going to have to start. You need to tell him. You can have some McDonald's. You stay in your room. You try that. One Happy Meal for a week of staying in your room after your bedtime. That should be the rule. Is he not coming in? He's ignoring you? He's acting like he's not there.
Yeah,
that's the
I
best.
can totally hear him. That's why I'm circumspect in my responses, because there are little ears outside.
At first, I didn't think it was real. I woke up to this blinding light, and I was transported to another place. Pluto TV! Then I heard a voice.
Come with me if you want to live.
There were thousands of movies and shows, and they were all free.
Truth is our city.
It's just so beautiful.
On Pluto TV, free streaming of Terminator 2, Fringe, Arrow, The 100, and The X-Files may cause excitement, loss of sleep, and sudden belief in extraterrestrials. No credit cards or alien encounters necessary. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.